As developers, we need to fetch data from remote sources. For example, let's go to the GitHub API. So I'm going to go to the browser, and here I'm going to type in api.github.com/users. As you can see, this will give us the JSON data of all the users available in the GitHub. So if you want a specific user, so what you can do is you can give a slash. I'm going to add in my username. That's Prime Inspire. So this will get me the specific data of my GitHub URL. Here you can see that we are getting all of my GitHub information in JSON. So let's try to fetch these data with React. First, let's copy the URL of the user and paste it in the comment after the import. So I'm just going to copy this. Let's get to the code. And after this one, I'm going to paste it over here. Okay, I'm going to keep this in comment. Now let's import the use state and use effect. So I'm going to get rid of this. I'm going to say use state and then use effect. I can get rid of this one, and I can get rid of all of these items too. Let's save that. Now let's create the data variable and a variable to update that data to set to use state to null. So what we're going to do here is we're going to say const. I'm going to set this to data and another one to update data. I'm going to set this to use state, and for now I'm going to set this to null. Let's save that. Now let's use the use effect. So I'm going to say use effect, and then we're going to call a function here, and this is where we need to fetch the data. Now inside the use effect, we'll fetch the data. So just type in fetch, and then we can add the URL which we just copied. Just copy this, then paste it over here. Here you can see that we are using the API to fetch the data, but we are going to set the username as variable. So what we can do is we can get rid of this thing here, and I'm going to set this to $1. Then I'm going to give this name as login, and then we're going to change the function here which we have to login. Now we need to add response to JSON and set data. So basically it's going to say dot then, and inside that we're going to add a response. Okay, and then we're going to say response dot JSON. Okay, and we're going to add another then, and then we're going to say update data. Save that. Now let's add an if statement to check if the data is available. So I'm going to get rid of this thing here. I'm going to say if data, then it's going to return a div tag, and inside that it's going to return JSON.stringify to get that data. Okay, so let's close this here, and if this doesn't work, we're going to say return, and then inside this we can give a div which basically says no user available. Save that. Now let's go to the index.js here, And in the app component, we are going to add an attribute called login. Then we're going to set the username to Prime Inspire. Let's save that. In the previous class, we saw how we can get and fetch that data from the GitHub user. Let's get to the browser here. So here you can see that we are getting all the details for the user Prime Inspire. But this data is not readable. Yes, it is readable by developers, but as for users, it is not readable. So we need to format this so that other users can read it too. In this class, we will learn how to display that data. So let's get back to our code. And here, what we're going to do is we're going to get rid of this thing. Then we're going to open this. And here we're going to say div. And inside that, we're going to say h1. And we're going to say data dot name. Let's save that. So how am I getting this? So if you get to the browser here, and actually I'm going to undo this for a moment. So if you get back here, you can see the name here is login. So we can also specify the name here. So you need to search for the specific names like login. This is the one which we got. And if you want to display the image, we can give the avatar URL. And if you want to specify the following URL, you can also specify this. And based on this, even if you have an email, you can just specify the email. I have not given an email. So if you specify the email, you'll also get an email over here. So you can display the Twitter name and a lot of other stuff. So let's get back here, and basically we need to get this. Inside this, we need to add a div, and here we can add a h1 tag. In the flower braces, we can say data.name. Save this. If you get to the browser, you can see that I can output the name. So let's get back over here, and the next one, I want to specify a paragraph tag, and I want to specify the location of this user. So I'm going to say data.location. Save this and get to the browser. Here you can see it shows the location as Bangalore. We can also display the image. So what we can do is we can add in a img tag, and we can specify an alt tag or alt attribute first, and then we can say data.login, and then we can specify the src, that is a source, and I can set the source to data.avatar underscore URL. Save that. Let's get to the browser. Now you can see that we have the image, we have the name, we have the location, and this way you can access all the data of that API. But what happens if you have specified a data which does not exist? This is where the handling loading state comes in. When it comes to HTTP or APIs, there are three different possible states. One is pending or loading. The second one is success, like the one which we have here. And the third one is failed. The failed happens if the data is unable to load. Now the failed state usually happens if there is some kind of error. For example, let's just say that there's some typo here, so we did not specify that users or we missed the R over there. And if the user get back to the browser here, and if I click on refresh, and we get this kind of error. So this is the point we want to let the user know that something has gone wrong. So in order to work with that, we need to make a couple of modifications to our code. So first thing, I'm going to remove this typo here. So let's save that. If we get to the browser, you should be able to see that. So still not. And we should be able to get this result. So let's get back to our code. And what we're going to do is we're going to create some more variables. I'm going to call this as const. And the first one we're going to set is the loading state. And we're going to set loading, and we're going to use state and I'm going to set this to false. And I'm going to set another one, say const, and we're going to set this to error. I'm going to set error to use state, and I'll set that to null. So in the use effect, we will create a simple if statement. We're going to say if the login does not happen, then we want to simply return. Or we can simply set loading to true. Now, besides that, we can also set in some more items. Like for example, we can add then, we can chain on, we can add some more details here. So we need to get rid of this one here. Okay, so we're going to say then, and inside that, when you create a function, I will say set loading to false. Okay, and then we'll say catch set error. Save that. Now we need to add an empty array over here. I'm going to set that to login. Okay, let's save that. Now this part is done. What we want to do now is let's work on the loading state. We can add the loading state right below the use effect over here. So we can say if, and we're going to say loading, then we're going to simply return a h1 tag which says loading, and right below that we can say if there is an error, we want to return a pre-tag which basically holds JSON.stringify, and inside that we want error, and we want to display null, and then true. And let's close this. So basically what this does is if there's any kind of error, it's going to show that error on the screen. Okay, so now we can simply say if the data is not loaded, then we're going to return null. And now we can actually get rid of the if statement here. So we can get rid of this one, and also we can get rid of these things here. Save this. So now you can see that we have the data showing up in our browser as usual, and if it doesn't, it's going to show that it is error, and if it is in still loading state, it's going to show a glimpse of the loading like you saw in the beginning. It's going to show the loading state over there.